Bob Warren, and this is Your Life, America's most talked about program, brought to you by Hazel Bishop Long-Lasting Lipstick, who tonight introduces Rose Red, the smartest shade to wear with dark clothes in the daytime and the shade that won't fade out at night. And now, speaking from his dressing room backstage, here he is, Mr. This Is Your Life himself, Ralph Edwards.
Hi, Bob.
Hi, Ralph.
Hello, everyone. My goodness, where are we going to start from next? I wonder with This Is Your Life. We started our program a little differently this evening, as Bob just told you, ladies and gentlemen, without our usual musical opening, because at this moment, our wonderful principal subject is actually on our stage of the NBC El Capitan Theater. A fine musician, she is considered by many experts to be the best performer of old-time fiddle music in the United States, a pioneer who has helped revive and preserve American Western music. She's under the impression that she and her pianist daughter are about to be filmed in a new program of folk music. Now, she's never seen This Is Your Life, we believe. The so-called director of the film is about to give her the cue to start playing an old Western dance tune. Now, in a few moments, I'll break in and surprise her. Let's look. There she is now. Are you Mrs. Ruth? Are you Mrs. Viola Hope and Ruth? Of Phoenix, Arizona? Are you the Arizona State Fiddle Champion from 1926 to 1949? You retired as undefeated champion, didn't you? Mrs. Ruth, may I break in just for a moment? I'm sorry. My name is Ralph Edwards. How do you do?
Oh, Ralph, hello.
Good to see you. My goodness.
Nice.
Now, I almost hate to do this, you know.
This is the daughter, Ralph.
Oh, is this the daughter? Now, you weren't brought here. Listen very closely. You weren't brought here from Phoenix to appear on an NBC program called American Music Through the Years. There is no such program. Now, don't be disappointed, because right now you're on television coast to coast.
Oh, bless your
And
heart.
you're here in Hollywood because tonight, This Is Your Life. Viola, Hope, and Ruth. Our thanks to Mr. and Mrs. Charles Jones and Ralph Constable of Phoenix, Arizona, for their wonderful assistance in helping us to get Mrs. Ruth to Hollywood before our cameras. Now, we believe, Mrs. Ruth, that you've never seen our program, This Is Your Life.
I've heard it.
You heard it in the old radio days. Well, I want to tell you that tonight, then, we're going to recreate your inspiring and courageous life. The story of a pioneer woman born on an Arizona cattle ranch who has saved some of our rich heritage of American Western music from being forgotten, and whose love of humanity has made her a trailblazer in the field of practical nursing. Now, you can give your fiddle to daughter Marie. Marie, come over here, my dear. I didn't mean to slight you there at the beginning, but we had Mom really going, didn't we?
I wasn't going to stop you.
She's your regular accompanist. And your beautiful daughter, thank you for helping us with this little prank.
You're welcome.
This big frame-up, I should say. And now, Mrs. Viola, Hope, and Ruth, will you please accompany me to our chair of honor?
I want a handkerchief.
I've got a handkerchief, don't worry. I want a handkerchief. Oh, on the way, I'd like to have you meet Miss Joanne Jordan, and this is Mr. Bob Warren, our Hazel Bishop.
Nice to see you.
Real fine. We're going on over to the...
Right, Ralph. Is she wonderful? And we've got a real good-looking audience here, too, Joanne, with the ladies all dressed up in their new clothes, huh?
I'll say, Bob. And here in Hollywood, as everywhere else, navy blue and dark clothes are very popular this season. But there's one thing to remember. When you wear dark suits or dresses, and that is, you can look ahead and have, if you have a drab sort of dress, why, you can wear a richer shade of lipstick. And with a touch of blue to give it an exciting character and depth.
And ladies, here's the big news. Hazel Bishop has just introduced an entirely new shade of lipstick to go with your dark clothes perfectly. It's called Rose Red.
And we know you're going to love it. For Rose Red is not a namby-pamby shade, Not harsh either, but a rich, luscious shade of red with just the right amount of blue to go beautifully with your dark clothes in the daytime and to keep it from fading out at night.
So go to your nearest cosmetic counter and get Hazel Bishop's exciting new Rose Red shade of lipstick. That's Hazel Bishop Rose Red.
Hazel Bishop Rose Red.
Hazel Bishop Rose Red.
Well, it's a wonderful shade, rose red, and you be sure to get it. Now, this wonderful lady, Miss Ruth, and I have been talking. What'd you say? That when I came on, what'd you say? When you were playing?
I said I didn't know who you were, but I was going to keep playing, and I wouldn't make a mistake either and keep talking.
You a little bit over your surprise now, Miss Ruth?
Yes,
All right, we have another surprise for you, the first of many. Here to pay tribute to you and to play for you tonight is the present Arizona Open State Fiddle Champion, Roy Sexton of Phoenix, Arizona. Here's Roy. We really got her, Roy. Yeah, you go ahead there with the fiddle. We're going to hear from you right now.
More than for bringing him.
I know, and we're going to find out why in just a moment. You'll be seeing Roy again in a few moments, Ms. Ruth, and hearing him play, too, as we start our journey through your inspiring life. July 28, 1892. What'd you say? That's what? Yeah. One of your numbers? Yes, you've written a lot, I know. And you taught him. All right. In a two-room frame house on a ranch at Dos Cabezas, Arizona, you, Viola Hopen, utter your first musical cry. Your father is a cowboy, Bill Hopen, who had been instrumental in the capture of Geronimo. Your mother was Emma Louisa Young, a descendant of Brigham Young. Both your father and mother have since passed away. How old were you when you first rode horseback? Can you think?
I think I was about 4 years old.
About 4 years old. Soon you're holding posts as your father sets line fence and strings barbed wire. Bring that monitor up so Mrs. Ruth can see herself from time to time, boys, will you? Thank you very much. You're looking over at that one there. We're going to get it to be a little more comfortable for you right here. In the 1890s, this is pioneer country we're talking about, and the Apache Indians sometimes camp practically in your backyard.
One time an Indian medicine man came into our kitchen and frightened us terribly.
Whose voice is that, Miss Ruth?
My sister.
Yes, here from the town of Show Low, Arizona, where she teaches in the grade school, is your sister Ella, now Mrs. Ella Clarkson. Here she is. When that Apache medicine man scared the daylights out of you, Miss Clarkson, come on, stand up here. Do you want her to sit down over there? All right. No, that's all right. Either way.
God love you, sister.
Aren't they two really fine gals here? When that Apache medicine man scared the daylights out of you, your sister was only 7 or 8 years old, wasn't she, Miss Clarkson?
Yes, and I was about 10. We were alone on the range, and this Indian medicine man came in and frightened us terribly.
What did he want?
He
Coffee and biscuits.
wanted us to have wanted coffee and biscuits, and of course we gave it to him.
Yeah. And then he demanded something else, didn't he?
He did. He wanted sugar, but we refused to give it to him. So he called in some of the braves and scared us into giving it to him. After which, he did the medicine dance in our kitchen and chanted a medicine song.
The one that's being played. That's right.
My own composition.
That's right. You're going to hear a lot of your compositions tonight, Miss Ruth. A song that you remembered and used effectively many years afterwards, and we'll hear about that later, too. Thank you, Sister Ella, Mrs. Clarkson. Thank you very much. She's going to sit over here, my dear. Yeah. 1902. In the winter, you go to school in Phoenix. But in the summertime, you and your sister ride the range and herd cattle. Part of pioneer living is being a good neighbor, and from the time you're 5 years old, you learn to take care of the injured and to nurse the sick. When you're 12, you learn to play the classical violin and to read music. Most old-time fiddlers can't read music, can they? No. At 12, you sit in with the local musicians playing in the community dances, at schoolhouses, and in homes. And you write down every old-time tune you hear the fiddlers play. And that's what we're hearing tonight, you see, as Roy plays them. A practice you've continued throughout your life, Ms. Ruth. Many of these songs would have died as the men who played them passed on, except for your preserving. 19 1905, you attend training school at Tempe, Arizona, and in 1908 enter normal school at Flagstaff. You take the music courses that enable you to teach any musical instrument. You even become first violinist with the Phoenix Symphony Orchestra. In the summers, you're back at the ranch playing fiddle for the dances of your pioneer community.
One time I went to an all-night dance with Viola and her folks, and I bit her.
He bit you. I doubt, Miss Ruth, if you'll recognize those biting tones. You haven't heard that voice for 45 years. From Welton, Arizona, an old beau of yours, Andrew Brimhall. Andy Brimhall. Come on over here. Will you please tell us, Mr. Brimhall, about what happened on the way to that dance back there in 1908?
Well, the whole Hopen family was in the hack. The father and mother in the front seat, Viola and Ella and I in the back seat.
Yeah.
I was in the middle. And the girls and Mom had cooked a big stack of pies, and I had to get along with the girls and the pies and keep from squashing any of them. And Viola didn't help very much.
What?
She kept fixing her hair and rubbing an arm across my face, and I stood it a long while, and then I bit her. On the arm.
Yeah.
45 years since I've done this, and I'll do it again.
Poor Viola. Well, what happened? Maybe we better get on with the story. We're clearing up a few points that we haven't known in 45 years. What happened after that, eh?
Well, of course, she let out a Comanche war whoop.
Yeah.
Uncle Bill turned around and very sternly demanded what had happened. Ella says Andy bit Viola. And after a moment's pause, he says, well, under the conditions, I'd have bitten her myself.
Must have been good enough to eat, Miss Ruth. Thank you, Mr. Andrew Brimhall. Thank you. You'll see him at the party after, along with all the friends. It's 1911 now. You marry Arch S. Ruth. He's a cowboy and bronc rider who has worked on your father's ranch. December 16th, 1911. Your son Emerald is born in Holbrook, Arizona. And here from Phoenix, where he's in public relations and training for the State Highway Department, his son Emerald. Oh, boy. And from Yuma, Arizona, where he is a partner in the Yuma Materials Company, your second son, Walt. Walter, come out here. Walt is a legend in football history down in the Border League down there in Arizona. Your family didn't stay any particular place very long, did it, Emerald? The folks didn't stay around one place very long.
Not that time, Ralph. My dad was one of the top cowboys in the country, and he was able to pick his jobs, so we traveled around quite a bit.
Sure.
And, of course, Mom always filled in by playing at community dances to help out the family budget.
Your mother wanted each of you children to be able to play a musical instrument, didn't she, Walt?
That's right, Howard. We tried to learn to play a few instruments. I managed to beat out a tune on the guitar, and, of course, Emerald here was a clarinet and saxophone player, and our younger brother, Goodrich, was a trumpet player, and my sister, Marie, played the piano and violin.
Mm-hmm. Did you play the violin?
And how I learned to play the violin, Ralph, is quite a story.
Well, how is that? Mother, she's going to tell Marie about how she learned to play the violin over here.
Well, when I was 12 years old, they had a state music school contest, which Mother wanted me to enter. So I told her if she would buy me a piano, I'd be very happy to enter that contest.
Yes. So what happened, Ms. Ruth? You taught her to play the violin?
What happened, she had never had a lesson in her life. But she said, I can play that number. And I said, well, my youngster that I have trained with will never memorize. She said, I can play it. I said, I don't believe it. She said, all right, I'll take the fiddle and show you. She picked it up and played it through.
No, fully.
So after the contest, had I have taught my pupils just one high note, I would have won first, second, and third. But as it was, I was only going for second and third, which I got.
Did she win first prize at this?
She won second prize, what I was expecting her to get.
But you considered that the prize that
Wonderful.
would get the
was
piano.
And she got
you
the piano.
kept your promise. You paid for it from the earnings as a music teacher. Is that right? And she has the piano. Thank you, Marie. Walt, thank you. And Emerald, Ruth, thank you very much, boys. See you on pretty soon. 1920, November 19th, your third son, Larson Goodrich Ruth, is born. 1926, you enter the Arizona Open State Fiddle Championship held at Flagstaff, the only woman competing against a field of men, and you win. Your position as undefeated champion fiddler is to become so unique that Robert Ripley pictures you in his Believe It or Not feature. There are years of personal tragedy, illness, and blindness, but in spite of this, there are years of great accomplishment ahead of you, Viola Ruth, not only in your chosen field of music, but as a mother, as a pioneer in the field of practical nursing. Now, we'll hear about this in a few moments. First, I know our Hazel Bishop, our favorite Hazel Bishop girl, lovely Joanne Jordan, has an important question.
Thank you, Ralph. And it's just this. Are you one of those women who's in the habit of using just one shade of lipstick, day or night, with everything you wear? Well, that's a mistake. For, you know, there are times when your favorite shade simply doesn't look right.
When is that, Joanne?
Well, most lipsticks look washed out when worn with day clothes in the daytime, but washed out with any clothes under artificial light at night.
Joanne, what's the answer?
Well, Hazel Bishop has it. An entirely new shade of lipstick called Rose Red. There's nothing like it, because Rose Red is a rich, luscious red with just a touch of blue to give it the excitement a woman needs to look her most radiant when she wears dark clothes in the daytime, to look her most glamorous at night.
So, whether you're a blonde, brunette, or brunette, go to your nearest cosmetic counter as soon as you can and get Hazel Bishop's exciting new Rose Red shade of lipstick. And for extra smartness, be sure to get the matching Rose Red shade of Hazel Bishop long-lasting nail polish.
I'm glad. Thank you, Bob Warren and Joanne Jordan. And now back to This Is Your Life, champion old-time fiddle player, preserver of American folk tunes, and pioneer practical nurse, Viola Hopen Ruth. "1930, your marriage ends in divorce. Some of your children are still growing, and you support them by appearing on a local radio station there in Phoenix, Arizona, KTAR, playing for dances and teaching music. You also turn your hand to the practical nursing you'd learned on the ranch as a girl. This becomes a driving interest, doesn't it? Then you suffer a physical illness, which has led to 17 operations. Your own illness makes apparent to you the shortage of nurses in Phoenix.
So in 1939, Ruth wrote me asking me to come to Phoenix and establish the first school of practical nursing in the state of Arizona.
And besides, Mrs. Ruth did a great deal to get the law passed that licensed practical nurses in the state of Arizona.
Now, that first voice, Mrs. Ruth, you haven't heard in 15 years. Do you recognize it?
Dr. Carmody.
The lady who, with you, established the first school for practical nurses in the state of Arizona, and during World War II was complimented by Mrs. Franklin D. Roosevelt for her humanitarian efforts. From El Cajon, California, Dr. Wilma Carmody. Here's Dr. Carmody. And a good friend, herself a practical nurse, now chemist for the Allergy Research Laboratory in Phoenix, Mrs. Della Addington. Here's Mrs. Addington. Now, Dr. Carmody, previously you yourself had established the first residence and training school for practical nurses in the West, hadn't you?
Yes, that is true. And that's why Ruth wrote to me. I went down to Phoenix, established a school. Ruth helped the interview
Viola.
the pupils, Viola,
Yes.
yes. And even gave them jobs after I'd finished training them, didn't you? A wonderful girl.
Certainly is. Mrs. Addington, you told us Mrs. Ruth had a lot to do with getting the bill passed that licensed practical nurses in Arizona.
Yes, she did. And one of our nurses, Ruth Coombs, who was later elected to the Arizona State Legislature, Viola and I buttonholed those legislators to get them to vote for the Nursing Practice Act, which made it possible for the
practical nurses to be licensed in Arizona.
Thank you, Dr. Wilma Carmody and Mrs. Della Addington. Thank you. We're back in 1938 now. Times are hard, and you join the WPA, as does daughter Marie. First, you're in the nursing section, then later you're put in charge of the Western dance music, organizing folk orchestras, and finally, you're in the recreation division. And one day, you're playing fiddle music for some patients at the State Mental Hospital in Phoenix as music therapy. And the medicine song you'd heard that Apache medicine man chant when you were a little girl proves to be most helpful. Now, how was this, Miss Ruth?
We had an Indian girl that told me, they called me the angel of the hospital. And the Indian girl said, Angel, everything you play is lovely, but if you could play just one number that I need, I would get well. Well, we hadn't been allowed to use Indian tunes as far as I knew. And I was afraid, and yet I knew what she was wanting. So my men had never heard it. And I turned to my 5 men, and I said, take your tom-tom rhythm on your instruments, no strings, and do as I tell you, not a word. So we played it. She was sitting like this when I started. And she finally began to droop, and when I got through, her head was touching the floor. And the boys said, what's the matter with her? And I just, for them to be quiet. Eventually, she raised her head. She says, Angel, where did you get that? I said, that doesn't matter, does it, as long as that is what you wanted. 2 weeks afterwards, she was in the sewing room cutting out patterns, and that summer, she was released to go back to Tuba City.
Now, wonderful. Real wonderful. You and your daughter Marie also give unsparingly of your time entertaining our servicemen, and you're affectionately nicknamed by them Mom Ruth. 1944 is a year of tragedy for you. While in charge of the USO at Kingman, Arizona, you've become partially blind, a blindness that lasts for about a year. Courageously, you still keep your job and entertain servicemen, although you have to be led to the bandstand. And then you learn that your youngest son, Larson Goodrich Ruth, age 24, a Navy flyer, is missing in action. The Navy has paid your son Goodrich honor by naming a Naval Reserve Station the Larson Goodrich Ruth Reserve Naval Surface Training Unit No. 1 in Phoenix. What's that? Oh, you're the mom of the division. 1948, anxious to share the musical treasures you have unearthed, you invest your small savings in the publication of your book, Pioneer Western Folk Tunes. You've since co-authored with Lee Owens another book, Advanced Square Dance Figures. Now, Roy, who's doing so well on the fiddle over there, the year 1948 was also Mom Ruth's last year as Arizona State Fiddling Champion, wasn't it, Roy Sexton?
Yes, that's right, Ralph. Mom was so good at that time that the boys just wouldn't come into the contest, so the boys that were running the contest asked Mom to drop out so the rest of us would have an opportunity.
But she wanted to groom a successor. What'd she do about that, Roy?
Well, for some reason, she picked on me and took me under her wing and taught me some bow techniques and styling one thing and another and pushed me into that contest in 1949 and got lucky and won the thing.
Again in 1952 and in 1955. Congratulations to you, and thank you, Roy Sexton.
Ralph, what Tom Mix, William S. Hart, and Roy Rogers have done for Western movies, Mom Ruth has done for Western music.
Now, that's the voice of someone, Mrs. Ruth, who hired you back in the 30s to play on the air when he was program head for the Arizona Broadcasting Company. The former governor of Arizona, now administrative assistant to President Eisenhower, Howard Pyle. Here he is.
God bless you, Howard.
Well, Governor Pyle, what would you say about Mrs. Ruth's contribution to Western music?
I'll tell you, Ralph, she's been a real crusader. There was a time, as Mom Ruth will tell you, when Western music was having a bit of a struggle to sustain itself. She and her fiddling friends did a fine job of bringing it back and making it traditional folk music such as it is today. And there's another point I think ought to be made here.
What's that?
At 62, This woman, 63, I didn't know that. This good woman can still turn in 4 hours on a bandstand and outdo the men.
I'll bet she can. Thank you very much. Howard Pyle. Thank you very much, sir. Well, this is your life, Viola, Hope, and Ruth. It is your belief that the roots of America have been nourished by its music, that when its own music is lost, something of America goes with it. You've devoted your life to seeing that some of the music should not be lost. Now, we've lived with you through the past and your present. Now, in a moment, we'll take a glimpse into your future. Okay? Right now, I've noticed two of our good friends over here with their heads close together. What are you two whispering about over there?
Well, Ralph, I was just asking Pat how she'd feel if you turned to her suddenly and said, Pat Garrison, this is your life.
Honestly, Bob, I can't imagine myself in that situation. But if I were suddenly taken by surprise in any situation, I'd want to be sure that I looked my best.
Of course, you always do, Pat. Your hair is so beautiful.
Oh, thanks, Bob. And thanks to new liquid Prel. You know, I never dreamed that my hair could look so radiant until I shampooed with liquid Prel. It really is the radiant shampoo, just like it says on the bottle.
That's right. And it's the only liquid shampoo that's extra rich. You see, Liquid Prel has an exciting new formula that gives richer, more effective lather that leaves your hair shining with millions of gleaming highlights.
And liquid Prel leaves my hair so wonderfully soft, yet so easy to manage. My hair really stays in place.
Yes, new Liquid Prel gives you that same radiantly alive look that you get with famous Prel in the tube. So for your next shampoo, buy new, extra rich Liquid Prel.
You bet. Try Liquid Prel. You'll love it there. Now, how are we doing, Miss Ruth?
Fine.
You know, I've been reading it through. I always say Ruth, too. I can see why you called him Ruth. And incidentally, we got a Howard in there, too, a moment ago, though. So we were all in good company, weren't we? We strike up the opening chords for your future, Miss Viola Ruth, with a party in your honor tonight at the Hollywood Roosevelt Hotel. You can get all the fiddles out tonight. All your out-of-town relatives and your friends have been staying there. And the happy tune continues with a 16-millimeter film of this program that you'll have, you see, and a Bell & Howell 16-millimeter sound projector, as well as a Bell & Howell 16-millimeter movie camera. So you can make your own movies there. Now, all are a gift to you from Hazel Bishop. The high notes of your life are captured in this 14-carat gold charm bracelet. Hazel Bishop had it designed for you by Marshall Jewelers of New York. Each little charm means something in your life. We also want you to have this beautiful Hazel Bishop jeweled lipstick, you see, because they made it all possible there. We know, Mrs. Ruth, that only recently an additional music teaching position was offered you near Phoenix, and you had to turn it down because of lack of suitable transportation. Now, to make it possible for you to accept such jobs, as well as to travel about more easily and gather more of the old-time Western tunes, Hazel Bishop climaxes your future with these keys to a brand-new 1955 Mercury, a gift to you from Cole Finder, Chicago's leading Mercury dealers. This is your life, Mrs. Viola Hopen Ruth, pioneer, practical nurse, and musician. You've been the instrument through which the treasured music of our American past has been preserved. And to your children, a constant haven of love and devotion. Good night. May God bless you.
Our guests all fly into Hollywood by TWA, Trans World Airlines. We congratulate TWA on introducing the newest and most luxurious airplane in the skies, the Super G Constellation. So fly the finest. Fly TWA.
Be with us again next week, ladies and gentlemen, on This Is Your Life, and we have a wonderful surprise for someone very special. Until then, good night, everybody. Good night.
This Is Your Life is a Ralph Edwards production, produced and directed by Axel Grunberg. Tonight's Western Dance was created by Jeanette Garrett and Lucky Estes. This Is Your Life has been presented by Hazel Bishop, America's longest-lasting, largest-selling lipstick. Tomorrow, go to your favorite cosmetic counter and get Hazel Bishop's exciting new shade, Rose Red. Tune in again next week when This Is Your Life will be brought to you by new Liquid Prel.
not Cole Porter. This is your story, I think, as far as I'm concerned, is one of the 5 funniest, maybe the funniest thing we ever did on the shows.
I consider that the greatest sketch I've ever... If you had to pick a #1 sketch of your life, that I consider it was the most brilliant. Sid's acting in that thing was that great. That was a satire on This Is Your Life.
And of course, for Sid, you didn't write jokes so much. You wrote, I don't know, funny real situations or funny... They weren't jokes in the conventional sense, because he was not a conventional teller of one-liners.
Welcome, America, and hi there, everybody. Once again, we present This Is Your Story. As you know, each week, we give you the intimate inside story of some person's life. Now, that person might be anywhere in the audience tonight. You don't know who it is, and there are neighbors sitting next to you doesn't know who it is. The only people who know who it is are we people backstage. Now, could it possibly be your life, sir? I know. Or could it possibly be your life, sir? Well, then it could possibly be your life, sir. Yes, sir. This is your story, Al Duncy. Seems to be a little overwhelmed by Al. He's a little Al Duncy. Al boy. This is your story, Al. Now come on up here, Al. Yes, sir. Come on up here, Al. The intimate story. He's a little overwhelmed, a little overwrought, ladies and gentlemen. Now, you just come this way, Al. Al Duncy. This is going to be the story of your life. We're going to tell the intimate inside story. Yes, sir, Al Duncy. This is a night you will long remember because this, Al, is your story. Al, I know it's a little overwhelming, but this is a night you won't forget soon. Let us turn back to page 1 of your story. You were born in Darling Falls, Montana. Darling Falls, Montana, June 12th, 1922. Is that right, Al?
That's right.
Yes, Al.
Gee, how'd you know that?
Well, Al, we know a lot of things about you. For instance, can you remember way back when you were a little boy, there was a man, a very kind man, who encouraged you. It was his encouragement and his kindness that helped to mold your life and make you the person you are today. Do you recognize this voice, Al?
Hello, Al. Remember me? I used to encourage you. I helped you in those desperate years when you needed help so very much. I guided you, encouraged you, and did so much to mold your character and make you the person you are today.
Could I hear it again?
Hello, Al. Remember me? I used to encourage you. I helped you in those desperate years when you needed help.
Uncle Goopy!
Sure enough, yes, he's certainly overwhelming in spite of Uncle Goofy once again. Yes, that's fine. We understand how you feel. Now, Uncle Goofy. Yes, Uncle Goofy, if you'll... Uncle Goofy. Uncle Goofy. Yes. We've got to get on with your life, Al. If you'll just set Uncle Goofy down. Uncle Goofy, you can sit down now. We'll see you later at the party. Dear nephew, after all these years. Now, Al, just see, if you'll just come back. We've got to go with the program. They're certainly happy to see each other. Now, just sit down here, Al. And we'll get on with your... Yours has been a full life. And here's a voice that will bring back nostalgia and a flood of memories. We flew her in all the way from Johannesburg, South Africa. And here she is now. Listen and recognize this voice if you can, Al. Sit down. Here we go. Yes. Your wonderful, rich, warm life, Al. Yeah. It certainly has been a rich, warm life. Al, here's another memory for you. It happened over 20 years ago. You were on the top story of a burning building, and you were a little worried then. You were afraid. Well, as a man came to calm your worries and to rescue you. He's that kind and gentle old fireman. Listen, Al.
Hello, Al. This is your old kind and gentle fireman. Mr. Torch! Oh, jeez!
It's certainly wonderful and a happy life you've led. Now, those are tears of... Ladies and gentlemen, we've got another surprise. We've got a lot more memories for you. Here's a voice I know will be familiar to you. See if you can recognize her.
Hello. don't you remember me?
Oh, honey, baby. Oh,
Yes, after all these years. I guess you're very happy to see her, aren't you, Al Dunsey? He certainly is. He's overwhelmed. Al, I wonder if you tell I wonder if you tell our audience exactly who this lady is.
I don't know who she is, but it's all right with me.
Al, you don't
Get out!
She's for next week's program.
What do you mean next?
What's white? Yes, honey. You'll see her next week. What? Ladies and gentlemen, Al. They're certainly happy to see each other, and we can't contain them. Yes, isn't it wonderful? Yes, Al Dunsey. And then happiness really came your way. In 1938, you joined the Northern New Jersey Drum and Bugle Call, and here they are.
We did that in the sister theater of the Radio City Music Hall. There's 5,000 people. 5,000 people in the audience.
This Is Your Life became a milestone for me. It is the first time, really, in my theatrical history where I was allowed to take over and do whatever the hell I wanted in a sketch.
I said to Howie, Howie, how did you were so, you just clung to Sid's leg and you wouldn't let go and you wept. And how did you get that? He said, I watched every Tarzan picture available and I became Cheetah.
This Is Your Life was done before I came on.